Hi, Nora. How are you?
I'm good. And hello, everyone. We're just going to go ahead and start. And thank you for coming and welcome to the experience. And thank you so much for joining us, Tiffanie. And I'm going to share a little bio about Tiffanie, and then we're just going to get into it. And Tiffanie was born in England, and she's so un-American in how she delivers herself. She's so graceful. Makes sense. And she currently lives in Houston, Texas with her husband and 2 boys. She has, like me, a love for the human story, and she earned her bachelor's degree in English from the University of Houston. She runs her own company, and we're going to talk a lot about this, My Untapped Potential, offering EFT, and which is tapping, the emotional freedom technique. Coaching too, to help clients develop a new relationship with their emotions. And then she's also the other co-host, the compadre to who was here last week, Carrie, to the Joyride Show. And it's a weekly YouTube show, podcast, and it takes a spin through the metaphysical mysteries of life. And I love, love, love your show. And Tiffanie is passionate. She's a passionate pursuer of all things spiritual and loves spending time with her family, friends, and pets. And it's that passion for spirituality that has connected us as friends and as collaborators in this co-creative dance and the awakening. My dear, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. Well, congratulations on your podcast here.
Thank you. We'll see how it all goes. I mean, it's really just, I think you and I have similar passions in that, like, if we just get it out there and we want the world to know that their unique experience is absolutely wonderful and perfect, and they're not alone in how bizarre this physical experience is, and everyone's story is so cool. So that's why we're going to talk about your story and share that with the world. So
Sounds
with
good.
that, let's just roll in. Let's just start.
That sounds great. Well, I'm in my comfy armchair at home, and I know we've been dealing with some technical issues, and that's what we were saying. It doesn't have to be perfect to get your story out there. In fact, it's the imperfections that can make it so relatable and beautiful. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
And look at this woman. She has such a calming presence, and I think that when people come to see you for EFT, this is an experience that people get to have, is they come into your presence, and there's just this calm that comes over you. Everything's going to be A-okay. And is that always how you've been? Have you always had that inner calm inside, or is there a story behind how that evolved? And
oh gosh, no. I have been turbulent storms. I've been a mess. I've been all over the place, and an unanchored ship. So you name it, I've been there. But I think finding that center, finding that calm and peace within is, to me, what this whole human journey is about, finding your true self. And when you really own that, the rough waters you don't take it on and go down. You just stay afloat through rough waters. And that's sort of, I think the rough waters just help give me the experience to be able to coach people through their own.
Right.
So no, I have not always been, I've always had a sense of grounding, but it's only been in the last 10, 15 years that I've really owned it and stepped into it, and that I can find it on a daily basis, or I know how to find it if I get out of it. I know what it feels like to be there.
That's so good. And so, what Abraham Hicks likes to talk about with having a lot of contrast early in life, it sounds like maybe you had some contrast in life. And I know from personally talking to you, but why don't you share with the audience a little bit about the contrast that brought you to where you are now?
Sure. Well, I've always been interested in spiritual and metaphysical issues. I remember my science fair project in school was about the sacred power of the pyramid, geometric shapes, and dowsing rods. So I grew up in England, and metaphysical was sort of more normal there. We had fairy gardens, and I know my mom always said if she ever needed something, it would just sort of show up for her, sort of law of attraction. And so I was very grounded in that and understood it just to be part of life. I didn't have a big religious upbringing. We had Easter and Christmas, but that was more like the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus. It wasn't a very religious background. And so my big contrast came when my family, we were born and raised in England, decided to come to the United States, to Texas, because my stepfather wanted to give us this big American potential lifestyle, and he just saw it as sort of a home of the free and the brave. And so we moved here, and shortly after, the economy crashed in the early 80s. And so my family kind of fell apart. We had our house foreclosed. My dad went overseas to earn money, and my mom took up with a not so very nice guy. And it just introduced so much chaos, physical, emotional abuse, drinking, drugs, and this was all in my early teen years, and it was just crazy. There was so much bad stuff going on. And my mom eventually passed away because of all of that. Oh, wow. And in the midst of all that, for some reason, I read the Amityville Horror book based on a true story, and I totally psyched myself out and got as far away from this I knew metaphysics to be real, but when I saw the dark side of it, I totally introduced so much fear, and it's because there was just so much upheaval and fear and drama. I felt so lost. I had no rudder to guide me, and I would have night terrors, and I didn't want anything to do with anything spiritual. I wouldn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Wow, so it was out of control or too scary? It was
out of control. Yeah, it was way out of control. And I got into a very stable relationship with a boyfriend for about 10 years, and his family was very grounded, very opinionated, and I sort of followed their lead, but it wasn't me. I was sort of masking with a lot of structure, but it didn't feel like me. There was still a lot of fear, like I said, a lot of night terrors, and it wasn't until
Tiffanie,
the late 90s.
Let me interrupt you for a second. Going to your childhood, that adolescent time period where there was a lot of chaos and you got afraid of the scary, dark stuff that was going on. Do you think that was an important time to maybe not be paying attention, that maybe that was part of your path that was unfolding, and that was kind of the perfect thing to just keep it at arm's length because it's not time yet?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was all part of the plan.
Yeah.
And it gave me a real understanding of people who are in the dark. It's real. It feels real. Your body reacts to it. Your mind that's all it sees. And it's a very hopeless and scary place. And I understand for a lot of people who experience trauma, I believe in past lives, or there's, past life brought forward, or where it's just something your soul is working on this life. It feels so real, and it doesn't feel like there's a way out. So that it's actually given me a lot of insight into how I can help people, even in that place. I understand it, but I have hope that they can move through it and use it as their catalyst for something else, for something bigger.
That's so good, because so many people really do have information about the dark, and whether they're internalizing it from what they're being given or it's just a representation of fear within them. I mean, it's so nice to have somebody who can just ground with you and say, I get it. It's, regardless of how it's showing up in your life, like, it feels really real. And to see somebody who's on the other side of it too is so powerful.
Yeah. And many people who are seeking the light, it's because of the dark. I mean, if you're all happy and life's good, a lot of people aren't looking. They're not on a spiritual path because it's just not calling to them. So I find a lot of people who I work with.
Go ahead. I just don't think that's really why we're even here, right? Like, why would we even come to be in a physical experience if we were just going to, everything on the other side is like, woohoo. We want that contrast. We want that experience as souls,
every now and then I see somebody who's having a pina colada on the beach kind of life, and I think they're coming here just to coast this life. They're coming here just to have an easy breezy, no big drama. Like, how good can life be without all the chaos, and maybe somebody who's gone through the Holocaust or something, they get to come back and sit on the beach.
Yeah, and I think too that just we can't know, and there are people, I'm sure that you've met them in your work and day to day, that their experience of suffering, like pain threshold, a person's tolerance for pain and suffering is different. And so one person who is, think of Mandela, who spent decades in prison, and he was able to become a leader of South Africa.
Yeah.
And and then think of someone who, would have stay stuck in the vibration of trauma, going through a really hard thing, and not be able to move on, and maybe even end their life. And either one works. It's really just from the perspective of the soul, right? I mean, that's
Absolutely.
my point of view anyway.
No, it is. And now I've done so much work and understanding of the soul, and how, and when I say levels, it's not better than or worse than, but different ages of souls and different intents that souls come in with, and why they, what strength and talents they have, what challenges they choose to take on in this life. We cannot judge one soul's story, because they may be doing a fantastic job. Even if he's a homeless guy on the street, that may be a fantastic life for that soul.
Right. Absolutely. A personal experience, I remember my father passed of cancer in 2003, and I remember feeling really mad, like, why would he bail on the family at the age of 60? And I was lucky enough to have an experience in my training to become a hypnotherapist that he literally he came in to me when I was hypnotized and just downloaded what was going on. And that was part of the agreement. He was like, listen, I didn't want to go, but that was also the arrangement that I signed on for. And so he said he was taking one for the team, meaning our whole family was experiencing that loss for a very particular reason for each one of us. And that helped so much to just understand, like, it wasn't against me, it was for me in a way. And I mean, it's definitely something to consider, but it was an amazing, that's what we can do as souls too. That's how powerful we are. We make those kinds of decisions in the soul self without the trappings of the earthly mind.
It's fascinating. I can never get bored. And one thing I have absolutely has changed my whole paradigm is seeing the past life stories and the journeys that the soul takes. So I know you're a big fan of Michael Newton, and reading his stories where a soul will track this lifetime I learned this lifetime I came in, one time I was a victim, next time I was a perpetrator. I've been a male, I've been a female, I've been all over the world, different races and alien species, whatever. But it when you can pop up to that soul view and look down, it just makes so much sense. So I get lost in my 3D world all the time, and I have to just constantly say, okay, what's the soul view of this? Because it is all for us. If you can get that concept, and you think, how would this horrible thing be for me? But it's how do you show up for it? How do you respond?
Totally. I mean, it's such, what a gift. And for you to be able to do that on a daily level is really super cool. And do you feel like, I mean, I want to hear more about your journey, but I also want to hear more about your work. Like, in your work, tell me about it. Tell me about how clients show up for you, and how you serve the light in that regard, because I know you're just beaming light. How does that show up for you? I'm curious.
Well, tapping sort of came to me. I'll back up a little bit because I was saying my journey sort of started in the late 90s when I had a medium reading with my mother, who had passed away tragically 10 years before. And it shifted. I said, that was love. And I said, what happened to you? And she says, I was sort of taken in by that darkness. And so what I felt was real. It validated that what I felt was real, that there is fear. It's fear is what it is. And it's very powerful. But what I felt in that reading with my mom is the love, and how much more powerful that was. And it just turned my whole world 180, and I started looking, where's the love? Where's the love? Where's the light? And I started saying, how do I reprogram these behaviors, these patterns, these beliefs that have made my life so scary this last 10 years.
Right.
And so I started looking for things that I could do to unprogram the fear. And lots of different, hypnotherapy. I studied self-hypnosis and lots of books. That's when I got into that devouring all the book stages. And I found tapping. And it was in its early years. And it's a process of tapping on your physical body, your meridians, your lines of energy that are running through your body while you are bringing up these fearful, traumatic thoughts. And what it's doing is it's sending an electrical impulse to your nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response. And it's actually sending a calming signal to your brain. So we're talking about the problem or the issue or the memory or the worry while we're sending this calming signal to the brain. And once you sort of diffuse that negative, we call it negative. It's not bad or wrong, but it feels very usually fearful. Once we diffuse that fearful charge, then we can reprogram a beautiful positive spin on it charge. And it's just as true. So I started doing this for myself. I started learning how to do it, and I was tapping with everybody who would sit still long enough for me to help them. And I said, okay, I need to actually get trained on how to do this. I don't want to hurt, do more damage than good. So I actually a great opportunity fell in my lap where Dr. Carol Look, who's one of the founders of this practice, she's out of New York, and I was able to coach and train with her. And I just started telling everybody about it. They'd talk about their problems, and instead of getting in there and like, yeah, that really sucks, and being in there, I'd say, well, we can do something about it. We can change how you look at it. And there's that saying, when you change how you see the world changes. It's so true. So we would just sort of start tapping with people, and they tell their friends. And like one client, her massage therapist, who she saw on a regular basis because she was so tense, was like, what are you doing? You're so much more relaxed. I'm doing this tapping thing. So she would come to me, and then she sends me her friends and clients, and it just sort of snowballs. So people who are open to this and who are, it takes a lot of courage and honesty to go in and do your stuff. But sometimes when the pain is that bad, you're willing to do anything. And this isn't in lieu of medical assistance or sometimes medication is needed, but this is an alternative complementary healing modality that I teach people how to do.
Awesome.
And sometimes I like to see people 3-5 times to help work on some of that big, chunky, meaty stuff, a lot of the older stuff that we actually often go in and rescue those little people that had the trauma, that were living through that trauma.
That are kind of stuck there.
And just stuck and feeling helpless and hopeless. It's matrix re-imprinting. You're actually having that little person tap and feel all those big feelings and help give her that grounding center that we were talking about, him or her, and then bring her with you into this new paradigm and teach her what she didn't know. She had no way of knowing at that age that things were going to work out the way they did.
Yeah.
And once you can diffuse that, it snowballs up and down the whole line. It just dominoes where you just kind of leave with this feeling of, oh, everything's okay. Even this big stuff that I went through or stuff that's going on, I can move through it as gracefully as I can. And so I like to teach people how to do it, but I also coach people. I say it's like a personal trainer. You know how to lift the weights, you know how to do your exercise, but sometimes unless you're paying somebody to sit there and do it with you, you don't do it. That's fine.
I hear you. Oh, I can relate to that. And I love how that shift can happen, and it's almost like how epigenetics is taking over now, and there's more scientific research to support it. It has that sort of epigenetic, impactful, along the family lineage, the genetics, like things shift because it's sort of like on a quantum level, you no longer need that experience anymore. Like the kernel has been received, and now it can all be like that feathering in of timelines and and all of the healing can happen, and it really, one person will heal massive, anyone who has the same issue on a quantum level. which is so cool. I've been really
so,
getting.
and obviously,
Oh,
the more spiritually aware person, they need to make the first move. So sometimes when you're stuck in a relationship and it's all negative, if you make the first move and approach things with love and compassion, it's not being a doormat and taking it. But if you're not feeding into the fear and the anger, the mistrust, all of that, if you're not feeding into it, the other person has an opportunity to rise with you, and they want to. I would say 9 times out of 10, the other person will rise to meet you,
right?
Or the situation will rise to meet you when you clean up your end of it.
Absolutely. And there's that higher,
or it'll fall away.
That level that you're talking about is like gaining some perspective. I think, I would imagine that there's this shift in awareness that's really taking place, where we have so much data that's coming in from consciousness studies and healing in general that really basically says the way you think about things is how your reality follows. And so getting people who are really entrenched in the 3D mind to start thinking in terms of more fourth, fifth, and beyond dimensional reality, calling forth their reality, and then becoming a craftsperson of their reality is so incredibly empowering. And people hear it differently. Is there something that you like to, a philosophy or a way of communicating that to people that you like to use that is part of your method of communicating to your clients, and your sort of, I don't know, your vibe to people is really, it's hard communicating energy, like
it is. It's such an intangible thing, but people understand. You can't weigh love, but we know love exists. You can't weigh and measure hate,
right?
But we know it exists. So you have to sort of step out of the labeling, measuring, scientific 3D world a little bit, and just say, okay, I have all these emotions, and it's normal to have the anger, the fear, hate, jealousy, rage, despair. It's normal.
Right.
And it's normal to feel them. You just don't want to let them set up shop and camp out and live there forever.
Right. Is that
is
that why you're here? Is that who you are? Like, is that you as a person? And the answer is obviously going to be no. We hope.
Well, it's all fine. But if you are feeling difficult emotions on a regular basis, I like to teach people you can create a different relationship with them.
Yeah.
And they are your signposts. Yeah. They are showing you where you have work to do. They're showing you where your life lessons are, your soul lessons. How do you show up for things?
Yeah.
And what my biggest takeaway is that people have the ability to respond differently to anything. Mm-hmm. So responsibility is their ability to respond. So you have a responsibility to yourself to be, my journey at least, is to be the best person I can be true to myself, be as loving, have my own boundaries and respect, but be as loving and open and generous as I can be to make the world a better place. And so I teach people, if you're having these difficult emotions, let's sit with them. Instead of blaming the other person or just wanting that situation to go away, what if it's actually the gift for you? If it's persistent and it's showing up, what if it's a gift wrapped in maybe a crappy package, but we can unwrap it and see what healing can be done there. And so a lot of the spiritual talk, it sounds great sort of in your mind, but when you start feeling these emotions on your daily basis, in your daily relationships, tapping is a tool to get you through the daily, minute by minute emotions and feelings that we all have.
That's so good.
It's a tool. And there are many tools, EMDR, meditation, Reiki, yoga, whatever mindfulness practice you have, great, use it. Yeah. This has just been one that has totally worked for me. And I haven't found somebody it doesn't work on yet.
That's so awesome.
To improve at some level. I know some people have felt at a very young age that their emotions were not allowed or acceptable or approved of, and they have learned to stop feeling emotions. And so some of those people, we have to start with learning it's okay to actually feel sad or angry or whatever it is for you. It's okay to feel that and to show it. And a lot of times it feels too big in the body, and we just teach you it's okay to feel the big feelings. And if you'll just feel them for like 90 seconds, 60 to 90 seconds, the feeling will pass. Unless you're feeding it the story, the actual sensation of the emotion will pass. But often we don't want to engage in that 60 seconds of so we numb it, drink it, smoke it, sex it, shop it, you name it. So I just teach people, your emotions are not something to be scared of. I will sit with you through all of the ugly cry and the wanting to. I'll sit with you through that, because that's just your body responding to your beliefs. That's your way of your habit of responding to the world. But there's so much discernment over how you respond.
Absolutely. That is such a huge, powerful key for people. And I've had experiences where people are like, how can you tell me that I can respond to things differently? Like, the truth is just the truth, and no other interpretation is available. And that's I think that's a very current experience that this shift is addressing right now. And along with that, sort of the scientific data and those kind of concrete, hard, rigid lines where, people who work in the metaphysical arts and with other auxiliary healing modalities, we know that it can't be concrete, because when we find a different perspective, when we open to a different interpretation, things shift. And we also know, right, like if there's a crime that happens and 100 people witness it, they're all going to experience a completely different. Yeah, totally different narrative. So I mean, to me, that means truth is very subjective. And, I'm curious what you think about the idea of truth and objectivity and subjectivity.
Well, just what you said. There's 7 billion people on the planet, all seeing their own truth. Yeah. And if that's your experience, it's your truth for you. My work is to allow other people to have their truth without it diminishing yours. And just seeing, so oftentimes when we're tapping, I'll say, okay, let's feel like maybe it was your dad or your mom or whoever was the subject of all this childhood trauma. Let's step into their shoes for a minute and see what their truth might have been. If they lived through the war, if they lived through the Depression, what is their truth and how does that affect how they behave? And so sometimes when you can just step into somebody else's shoes for a minute and drop your need to be right, you go, oh, so I'm not taking it so personally now. That's just how they saw the world. It has nothing to do with me.
It's huge.
And
it's so huge.
Shifting that perspective, and on a spiritual basis, I believe we are all one, experiencing through your little set of eyes, my little set of eyes, these 7 billion sets of eyes, experiencing the world from every different possible angle, and same-sex marriages, no marriage, none. We're experiencing the world through all of these different angles and perspectives, and that is adding to the collective consciousness of it all. They're all beautiful.
Well said.
They're all amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And can we encourage and allow ourselves to indulge in the experiences of others, which is why I think you have a show and I have a show, that there's so much beauty in each individual's experience, and there's no competition really. Like the idea that I'm a hypnotherapist, I'm a mom, I'm a this, I'm a that, like that isn't gonna have any sort of negative impact on anyone else doing similar things, because that unique, delicious offering is so specific to your experience.
Yeah. And there's enough for everybody to have it all.
Enough for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have found this spiritual path and the EFT to be my calling at this chapter in my life. And if anybody's open or interested to learn more about it, my website is myuntappedpotential.com. Because I do believe we have all this potential inside of us to be the best person and do what you came here to do. Absolutely. And all of these things that are showing up for you are here for you. So we just go explore. We go look around in the pretty little head of yours and see Because you were talking about epigenetics, and I've loved the research. Dr. Bruce Lipton, there's a lot of very qualified scientific research showing that you can take a pill, and that will chemically alter the way your cells respond. We respond to light and sound and smells and food. They're all different chemical reactions, but by far the biggest, most profound, like lightning fast chemical reaction is your thoughts. Your thoughts, as soon as you have a thought, it sends a cascade of hormones through your body, and your body physically responds to them. And when you do stressful, repetitive thoughts time and time again, mostly we don't even realize we are, your body is responding, and that's when you feel sick, tired, lost, angry. It's because our body is simply responding to the computer program that's running. And again, I just keep saying we have so much discernment over where we put our focus and what we're thinking, and awareness of what you're thinking is by far the most. So if you could set a timer for every 5 minutes and just think, oh, what am I thinking about right now? What am I thinking about right now?
Like
we're having the same thoughts over and over again.
To start checking in, right?
Like to start checking in.
Moment. And I want to finish your thought. And
No. Or when your body is feeling something, like, what am I thinking about right now? When your body is feeling a difficult emotion, like, what am I focusing on?
Right. If you're feeling
so these are just some very simple things to start.
Yeah. Like if you're feeling yucky in some way, oh, maybe I should. What am I feeling? Let me pause. What am I feeling right now? Yeah. So in talking about contrast in your experience, would you be interested in sharing some of the experiences that you're having in your life and in your family and your spiritual path in your family? Would you want to share any of that for maybe anyone who might be needing to connect with that? I felt a pull to ask you that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned that first medium reading. It was kind of totally by accident. I worked at a radio station, and he was a guest on the morning show, and I sort of between commercials, I was like, can I talk to this guy? And that's when I started on this path. So since then, I got really interested in connecting with spirit, connecting with especially my mom and stepdad who have passed. And so I started working through mediums. Now, they tell me I don't need a medium. I can do this by myself. So I am working to develop my own skills. And just last night, I was drifting off to sleep, and I could hear my mom talking to me. So that's coming. And it's not just my parents. It's my higher self. It's my spirit, my intuition. Developing those clairvoyant skills.
That part of the one that is even closer and more interwoven and less separate.
Yes. So some of my biggest, so I've been speaking with spirit through mediums for years now, just checking in, just saying hi, and maybe some advice here and there. But then when my youngest son, a few years ago, my dad in spirit started telling me he was having some autoimmune issues. I was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. He's not having any symptoms. And very shortly after, he started to develop these crazy symptoms, and I kept saying it's his immune system. Don't tell me how I know. Just I can't tell you how I know. It's just his immune. And we diagnosed him with this very rare progressive autoimmune disorder. But they in spirit have been saying it's part of his contract. Relax. We're working on it. He's here to love. He's here to teach you patience and letting go of control. So I'm just learning that. I'm just learning my spiritual lessons through my son and the health issues that we're going through. And it's helped me approach it so differently now because I know it's all meant to be. It's all part of it. Now, it doesn't mean my intent isn't for him to be fully cured and live a long, happy, productive life. But it's helping me. It's like fast tracking me on my let go of control. I can respond to this however I want to. It's making me walk my walk and talk my talk. It's making me do it. So I do connect with them by myself and with mediums sometimes, and it's helping us develop cures and treatments. It's helping us just be happy as a family, and I absolutely love that. I'm doing my tapping work, which is it's a daily practice for me. So I tell people, you're thinking it anyway. You're feeling it. Just sit and do the process. It's a very simple technique to unglue that emotional response. So I do that. I love our show, our Joyride show, because we get to connect with so many people who are walking their spiritual path, whether they're doing acupuncture, they're shaman, past life regressions, life between life regressions, which I love. People who keep bees, wherever you're finding your bliss and your joy. I'm interested in hearing those stories of how you got from here to here, what lessons you've learned. Because I'm learning every day. The more I learn, the less I know. I'm just a student.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
These are the sort of practices that I'm immersed in. I love Law of Attraction with Abraham Hicks. I love listening to Bashar, who is an Essassani entity being channeled through Daryl Anka. I love Course in Miracles. I don't know, there's just so many great teachers out there. The internet is full of YouTube videos, podcasts, where you can immerse your thinking, your training, your hearing to help you on a different journey. And like I said, from somebody who went from 180 in fear to looking for the love is equally as prevalent if you look for it.
That's so wonderful. And tell me, Tiffanie, when you were experiencing your fear, how was it showing up in your life? I'm just bringing that up because perhaps there are people who are in the midst of having similar fear responses to their day-to-day, and maybe it's similar. And you're beyond it. So that's what's so cool.
Well, fear shows up in so many ways. For me, it was just the tears right below the surface all the time. Feeling like I just couldn't breathe, like I felt lost, like I have no idea who I am, why I'm here, why am I going through this, just a complete detachment. Fear of the future, like the shoe's about to drop, the bombs are about to land, that kind of fear that it's all going to be taken away and there's nothing I can do. I would have night terrors. You know that movie, What Dreams May Come, with Robin Williams? Do you remember that?
I've never seen that, but
oh my gosh, it's such a good movie.
Oh, I'll have to see it. But tell me.
Well, there's a scene, his wife dies, and sorry not to give away too much, but he finds her. He has to go to her to find her, and she's in this black, dark, depressive, abandoned kind of house. Oh, wow. And that's her reality. Ugh. And he has to find her. But when I was in those dreams, that's what I felt like, and I felt like I was being chased. So just darkness, just scary darkness, and I was still working and living a full life.
You were functioning,
but everything was right there. It was functioning.
Yeah.
But boy, as soon as is it 5 o'clock yet? Can I drink my wine yet? I mean, I wanted to medicate it with alcohol, and my mother had died of alcoholism, so I knew how it was not healthy for the body to consume a lot of alcohol. I didn't like how I felt on it, but it helped me kind of forget or let go of that feeling for a while. And
like a little mental break from the intensity.
It is. So I completely understand why people want to medicate themselves out of the pain. I totally understand it.
Yeah.
So that's how it showed up for me, and it took a long time to I didn't want to have that relationship with alcohol because I knew what had happened to my mom. And I didn't want to ever drink because I was scared or angry or alone. But boy, I wanted to drink. So I now feel like I have a really healthy relationship with it. I can have a glass of wine here and there, but I don't crave it. I don't want it all the time.
And that's really powerful. You don't hear that very often. It's usually like total abstinence or you really don't hear that option where you have shifted your relationship in a way that's healthy. And how did that happen? How did you go about shifting your relationship with alcohol?
Well, so when my mom died, I got into that long-term relationship. I didn't drink a drop. It was abstinence, and it was almost done out of you can't drink because you are not going to be able to handle it. Sort of that.
Because your mom died from it, and now you can't.
10 years of abstinence. Don't do it. Don't touch it. And then when I left that relationship, that's when I started. It was very social. I was working in radio. It was rock and roll, and there was a lot of that was just part of the culture. So I started, yeah, okay, I can handle this. But then, like I said, it quickly became, I really need this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to really sit with it and really go, like I said, all the tapping work, going into the feelings and addressing the feelings of why I wanted to drink, not knowing myself or not loving myself, and not understanding who I was. So it's been an arc. But I'd say in the last 10 years, especially since becoming a mom, I didn't want that to be repeated. So I've become where I enjoy a little bit of wine. After, I don't like the feeling of being drunk. I like the little first half glass of wine feeling, and it's delicious and kind of a little warm. And after that, I don't really want any more, because I just don't like how it makes me feel, especially the next day. You know, any kind of alcohol. So I think it's just doing the work and not letting anything own me as far as fear.
It's so brave, and I think that is a testament to your courage, and I mean, you've had tremendous. I mean, you lost your mom at a really young age, and you had to sort of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and it's sort of what it inspires in me is this idea that moving beyond just sort of like the functionality of things. And yes, people can get to the point where they're showing up for work and they're abstaining from alcohol because there's a family history. But where is the deliciousness in life? Like where are we? Like how do we move beyond that in a way that puts our personal stamp of uniqueness on it and sort of moves away from the struggle and into the delight, right, of life? Like we're here because we want to be here. I personally believe that. And and it's like, so if we're here, if that's just a given, like a little math problem from geometry, if our given is you're here and you want to be, just take that in and have that be the given, then what? And it's like, you want to have a glass of wine and you don't want to be overpowered by it. Beautiful that you've done it. And you want to live life and you don't want to be in fear. Beautiful. And how what an amazing example to offer to people who are going through their own contrast, trials and tribulations, and feeling like, you know, I'm just damaged goods and life is just going to be this really tricky thing and then I'm going to die.
Yeah, I know that place, and I can promise that there's a lot that you can do with a little help, a little guidance maybe, to move through that and use everything you went through for your advantage to make it as delicious as you can imagine. Really.
Yeah. It's so nice to hear you say that, and I agree. Not only are we capable of moving beyond it, but that let's contemplate the idea that we're actually masters. That we're this earth experience isn't just, we're all just here by happenstance, you know, like, no. What if we're here to just have a ball, just to really kick ass?
What a different world it would be if we all knew that, right? But this new energy, this awakening, this shift that's going on, that we're all moving through, it's calling all of us to do that.
Yeah.
So it's time. It's just the time of our evolution.
Yeah.
You know, we know we can annihilate our planet if we really wanted to, and we don't want to do that. It's such a precious, beautiful, it's just priceless place.
What an opportunity, right? Like, what an opportunity to shine. That is why we came. Like, let's not get all flipped out about politics. Let's just, despite all of the way things are showing up, like, let's have fun and be beautiful, shiny, loving, you know, like, let's hug each other and unconditionally love each other and play and do art and, you know, stomp on the grapes and
I'm coming to live in your world.
Yeah. It's fun.
I love that. Well, things are changing. Like I said, times are changing. We live in a very dramatic time of change right now, and I think that we are being called to do our part to be a light in that, and
Totally.
stand for what you believe in, but do your own work first. Clean up yours, live the life, like walk your own talk.
Absolutely.
And
find yourself, find your voice, find what it is that lights you up. I mean, not everybody is going to be into EFT or hypnotherapy or like whatever delights you is your thing.
Absolutely. And if everybody just be the change you want to see in the world, Gandhi's taught us that if you are your change, that ripple effect is so profound. If everybody starts doing that, it changes probably pretty quickly. I think we'd be surprised how quickly our world could change, a matter of years if we all did our work. Can you imagine?
I can, and it's really cool. My husband and I have a thing at the very end of Return of the Jedi and the Star Wars series. There's a huge party because they, the Empire gets defeated and everybody throws a huge party like on multiple planets and stuff, and we talk about how that would be kind of the feeling of like the Empire's dead and we're all just living.
Everybody gets along.
Yeah, we get to play and be free. And I think that feeling of oppression and feeling contained and trapped. I personally feel like I've seen a shift in that. People are starting to sense more. I mean, so many more people are going through their awakening process, and I see it very, very heavily in my work. But then people's senses are coming online more too, so they're able to, like, almost like through osmosis, things are permeating, things are like awareness is coming in. And there's an amazing scientist, Rupert Sheldrake, who I just love. And I don't know if you've heard of Rupert Sheldrake. He's amazing. He talks about consciousness. He's a scientist of consciousness. And and I won't go on and on about him, but what he finds is that when in laboratory tests, that if an animal that they're doing scientific studies of learns something, whether it's like a certain tricky maneuver, that not only will the genetic inherited family of those beasts learn it much more quickly over time because it's already been learned, like the collective has it, like it becomes habitual to their
is that like the 100 monkey effect?
Yeah,
right?
Like it's definitely a part of that sort of mindset. And so, and humans do that too. And so, yeah, the 100th monkey was like, there were monkeys on an island in Japan or the Philippines or something, somewhere in Asia, and that the monkeys there were sandy sweet potatoes, and the sweet potatoes were there to bring the monkeys out for a particular science experiment, but they realized that the monkeys couldn't eat the sweet potatoes because they were sandy. And then when one realized that it could be washed off,
put it in the river, rinse it off. Yeah.
Not only did those monkeys figure it out, but monkeys on other islands figured out more quickly. And so this collective, and it's almost like it's that, I guess psychologists would call it the collective consciousness, and Rupert Sheldrake calls it the morphic resonance field. I mean, it's to me, it's consciousness because I work with consciousness in my work. But whatever it is, you could call it the force. It's alive, it's active, and it's dynamic, and we're getting it. And so seeing it is really cool. And so what's interesting, and I'm curious to know what you think about this, like all of the stuff that's going on, the politics and stuff. I mean, like I'll see on Facebook, people are like, "How can you deny that this really shitty stuff is going on?" And like, I'm curious what your response to that is. I'll add mine, but I have my own particular view on that.
Well, we know that things are definitely changing, and whatever side of the political climate you're on, we know that we're all being called to speak our truth. And I feel like there's this story, you can spin it this way, you can spin it this way. So when I don't watch the news personally, I will read the newspaper to get the headlines so I'm informed of what's going on, but I do not listen to the talking heads and all the talking speak. Mm-hmm. It frankly just bores me. Mm-hmm. and everyone's trying to fight and have their own opinion.
Yeah.
I feel like when I do my best in the world and I vote for the people that I feel are the best, that's my contribution. That's my work. I'll stand up when I think something's wrong. But I don't get involved in everybody else's fights. And I don't know if that's a little bit of put my head in the sand. I came to America and I was so happy to get my citizenship so I could vote. So I do vote in every election. I think it's very important to have a say.
That's awesome.
In the direction. But at the same point, I don't get involved in all of the political infighting. I do what I feel is best in my community of what I have control over and vote for the best candidates that I think that I can. And I say prayers for our world. I say prayers for the victim, the perpetrator, and the witness. Greg Braden has taught this. That I pray for all of us to find our collective peace in this.
That's so beautiful.
It's I don't know how else to say it. I pray that we all find peace. I know Dolores Cannon, have you ever done her work? She talks about the convoluted universe and how the new earth is shifting to where we will have an earth that is that more peaceful. We're all having parties around, part of a galactic empire, a galactic, civilization. And then there will still be an earth where it's all being controlled by fear and greed and power, and that will still exist, and you sort of get to choose where are you vibrating, where are you going to live, where do you want to live.
Right.
So when I do my work in my world,
right, that every opportunity is available to us in a different reality, and that we and maybe just thinking beyond that too, because I'm always trying to figure out like how to integrate all of this sort of this etheric conceptual stuff into sort of the human mind in a way that makes sense to me, and then hopefully that I can communicate it. But yeah, if the whole world is changing in a way that is away from the vitriol and the finger pointing and the needing to be right, and just shifting into like, well, this is what I need in my life. This is how I need it to go down. And whatever so-and-so is doing is not really what I need to go on in my world. So I'm just going to shift over here. Like, you can't deny the momentum. Like, I feel like I could just feel that shift in just thinking about it. And I really believe that that's happening. I believe it so emphatically that I can really feel it. And I participate in prayer, and those global meditations I think are really beneficial to that collective growth and healing that can happen. And yeah. And
so
go ahead.
Well, Abraham Hicks, I love their teachings, and one thing she said a long time ago, she said, you can be in a relationship where one person in the relationship wants a beach house and the other one wants a mountain house. And you think, how is this reconciled? It's just completely, if you just allow that, the universe will find you the perfect beach mountain house. You've got beach out the back door and mountain out the front door. I mean, it's perfect. So we have such fundamental contrasts. There's a space for all of it. There's a space for all of it. And I know we're dealing with terrorism. We're dealing with some really intense stuff, and it feels unacceptable. People are only ever doing what they think will make them feel better. So those people are living in I'm very, very general, but they're feeling in such dire circumstances that feels like their way to be happy. That's their way to find their freedom, is to do the terror things. And I don't have the answer here, but I'm just saying the more we can understand and find where we're doing the same sort of things, we're behaving in the same way, the more we can find that beach mountain house where they can. There's got to be an answer here. I believe there's an answer for every problem.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But you've got to bring your love to it. You've got to bring your love to the table to find it.
And I think the healership is holding the space. We healers say we hold the space for people to find like a better feeling interpretation of things. And I know that there are a lot of people who just like it's like fingernails on a chalkboard when I know I talk about finding the love in people who are doing really painful things to the world or violence. And I guess like it's hard for me to even stay in that space. First of all, it feels yucky. But second of all, I think because of the regressions that I've done, I've had the opportunity to visit multiple past lives or just had past life recalls come over me, like one time when I was walking in Costco with my husband. And these past lifetimes were not glamorous. A couple of them were very dark, and I was both of the times that I had past life recall, male, tall, both were handsome, I have to say.
Of course.
But assholes.
You were not a nice guy, yeah.
No, like one of them I came to sort of the awareness just before I was shot in the head. And I knew at that instant I was getting what I deserved. So there was no trauma associated with it. And then there was one where I was a very powerful priest. I don't even think that I was human in this life. I think I was like 8 feet tall. Mahogany skin. That's another thing too, is like in past lives you can also realize like I wasn't always white. That's healing. It's like, so my skin was like this delicious, almost purple, big muscles too. I mean, I don't know. I looked pretty darn good. Topaz eyes. But I was a priest of some sort. Very powerful, and power was extraordinarily important to me. And there was no part of me that was aware of or that thought that my power was oppressive. It was just good. It was just good to be powerful. And there was but in that understanding, that it's like when you have that download, you realize that was me too. Like that same familiarity of like, oh, that was me. But also the juxtaposition of like who I am now and how I see things. It's like, oh, I could see how that power might have been oppressive to the people I had power over, right? Yeah. And at the time, I don't think I had any inkling of it. And it was incredibly healing for me because I can actually see people who are doing things that are horrible and you have to hate them. And I am like, well, that was me. I was there. I've been there, and it's not a conversation.
You've been all of it.
Yeah, we've all been.
You've been
right?
the Nazi, and you've been in the concentration camp. You've been all of it.
Yes.
And it's. I know that's a very big concept, and for the people who have gone through that, it's incredibly traumatic. But your soul chose that to learn some very powerful lessons. And our friends that do the Shiny Show, it's another YouTube channel. They do a medium, and she interviews. And so she interviewed like Amelia Earhart, and she said, "What was one of the past lives that inspired you?" And she said, "I was this horrible man. I treated women horribly. I was just very mean and oppressive. And then when I got really sick, those women cared for me in such a kind way, and I didn't deserve it. And it made me realize the power of a woman. When I come back into Amelia Earhart's life, I wanted to show women that they could do things not as good as, but better than women. So that life as a horribly oppressive man, created a knowing of beauty. And we can't see that in this world. No. They've done one with Hitler, and he came in apparently as an archangel to help humanity grow, to help create this horrendous situation so that we would stop our infighting and band together and grow as part of the human evolution to go through an experience like that. So everybody, all those souls that played a role in it on either side, helped grow that experience so that we can know that darkness so we can find the light.
Right. And I feel like that is for sure. I'm really glad you bring that up because it's a touchy subject for a lot of people and people, members of my own personal family as well. And I had, genetically, I have a little hole in my family lineage because of that time period. And what's interesting is, how do I want to talk about it? I just want to say that in that space, there's so much room for love and expansion and growth. And I think people who are wounded need different levels of time to process. And I'm hoping, and that's one of my prayers, is more healing with oppressed people. I mean,
Yeah,
on any
yeah.
level, people who have been injured in a way that is so profound that it spans generations.
Well, I mean, we as Americans came over and did horrible damage to the Native Americans. I mean, we, in all of our glory to conquer America and move westward
Start a new
for
life.
prosperity,
Mm-hmm.
we did horrible things to the natives. So we're in slavery and the Inquisition. I mean, this stuff has been going on in humanity for a long time.
The Hawaiians in Hawaii, there's tremendous empowerment going on there. I grew up in Hawaii, and so
Yeah.
just seeing there was a lot of resentment when I was a kid growing up, but it's interesting to see like the empowerment of the Hawaiian language had almost died out when I was a kid, and nobody was really like. Occasionally, there were people teaching it. The elders were teaching it in school, but now there's so much fluency. There's a lot of Hawaiian being spoken, and we just went there to live for a couple of years a few years ago, and I was blown away. And to me, that felt like an incredible taking back the heart, taking back the heart of a people, and instead of focusing on bitterness and the wound, moving to a place of upliftment and like, we don't, that was then, and now what we know from this time is that we want this and we want this, and we're gonna teach our children this, and just it's that empowerment,
Yeah. I know we're going all over here, but I think we're still talking about the same thing, the darkness and finding the light in it. And we can stay in the darkness and be angry and bitter and revengeful, but that just keeps serving the dark. Mm-hmm. To me, that just keeps serving the fear-based and perpetuating that pattern. Mm-hmm. And if you are the awakened one being called to awaken, it's your call to rise above that now. Mm-hmm. We've had thousands of years of that. Right. Let's rise above that now and find a win-win for all of us.
Right.
So that we can live on a beautiful planet.
Well, and we also know too, like if you can be conscious of feeling differently, then you can go there. And we know, like from Rupert Sheldrake's work, that the people who have learned and grown beyond that, that's in the collective. So it's easier for us to move from wounding than it was a generation ago. It's getting easier possible. And easier and easier. And it's really, I get really excited thinking about it because, the unlimited potential that is just unleashed.
Untapped potential. Untapped potential. It's pretty exciting stuff. And so I try not to take on the world and all of the history and future. I just do me and my family. And when you do the work in your relationships, it's your relationship with your money, with your body, with your friends and family, your husband, your kids, your parents. When you do your work with your circle, you then set that example of how it could look for them. Yeah. And then they teach them, the teachers, and it ripples out when you become that example, and that rising tide sort of raises all the ships. Yeah. So just do you. You have to take on everything. Just be your light, this little light of mine.
Yeah. So let's see, how are we for time? We're gonna have to close up soon. But where are you guys going? Where are you going in the future? And where's the Joyride show going? What can we see?
Infinity and beyond. We are following the path. Moving from podcasting, moving to video. We're now doing Facebook Live. We're trying to build more of a community of people who are on the spiritual path and hear their stories, share their modalities that work for them, whether it's crystals or singing bowls or speaking to aliens, whatever it is that is lighting you up in this spiritual path, all with this intent of making it a joyride. Like, let's make it fun. Let's make it as fun. We all have the ups and downs. We all have times where we need to lift ourselves up or help each other up, but make it as fun as possible with as big of a community as we can kind of generate with. And we call ourselves the metaphysical moms, but it's dads too. It's everybody who's on this ride. So we don't know where we're going. We've been doing it for a year now, and it's just getting bigger and bigger, and we love it.
It is such a cool show, and you guys, have. I see the future being very bright because it just really feels like this is the time for it,
Well, and a lot of people, if you're in a little bubble, a lot of people feel alone in this, and they're not understanding the experiences they're having, these energies that they're feeling. Or sometimes it's a big catalyst, like an injury or an illness or a death in the family, to make you suddenly kind of look in that direction. And we want you to know there's so many people who have gone before you. We can stand on their shoulders, learn different ways to incorporate your strengths and talents into this soup that we're cooking up here. And so everybody's welcome on the Joyride show. We want to hear... Just like I said, I fell in love with the human story because there's 7 billion people on the planet. I feel like I could fall in love with each and every one of them if I knew their story and understood where they came from and where they're going and what their heart desires. I want that for them.
And what a gift to offer other people to not only be heard, but to have our similarities heard too. I mean, that's the thing that everybody gets to hear is our unique qualities and then our similarities, and we're just people here, but we're special because we're spirits in the material world.
Oh, I love that. We are spirits. I can't sing, but I love the police. But we're not there to wallow in the angst of it. And when I do my tapping, a lot of people who are into Abraham Hicks and Law of Attraction don't want to talk about the negative. Mm-hmm. But I just say, let's just face what's here, the belief that's here, and unglue it, then you can so easily reach for the better feeling thought, take another step towards your vision or your goal. If you sometimes release the trauma or the drama that you've believed and it's sort of embedded, you can unglue it. So.
And Abraham talks about having to go through a cruddy neighborhood to get to a good neighborhood sometimes.
Sometimes you got to do that. Mm-hmm. So. We're just inviting anybody so like I said, we're on the Joyride show. We may talk about your drama and trauma, but we're using it as the catalyst to what did you create from that? What empowerment did you learn from this? You have to know one to know the other. That's where this 3D world. I just totally dropped my phone. Sorry, I'm using my hands too much.
That was a joyride. That's fun. Whee! We just sort of tumbled around your house. It was really fun.
Well, I put my headphones on so that I didn't have the feedback from my computer, but I said in the beginning, I hope I don't throw my phone. So sorry about that.
Well, in concluding, because we're going to have to close up, I think that was the perfect segue. What I always seem to recognize from having these conversations is an hour is just certainly not enough.
You just scratched the surface.
We just scratched the surface, but I'll be asking you back, darling, and keeping appraised of the wonderful work that you're offering the world. And I just want people to know about you and the Joyride show and your tapping and just shout you from the rooftops because
thank you.
You're doing it, girl.
Well, we talk about you quite a bit on the show. We talk about the 2 times that you've been on, but we also talk about the work you're doing and then the new work that you're doing, which I'm sure you're going to be talking about, the speaking to people who are not able to communicate.
Yes, and that's, it's funny because I haven't talked about much of my work on the experience, but we're going to...
Maybe I need to interview you, because there's a lot going on there, girlie.
There's so much going on. It's pretty crazy. Oh, well, just tell me when, and I'll be there.
All right. How's next week for you?
Yeah, if you want me to call in, I'll be there.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, my dear.
All right, sweetheart.
Thank you so much for your open heart. I love you to pieces.
Thank you. Blessings to you and your family. Bye, dear. Bye, everybody.
You too. Take good care. All right, everyone. Thanks
Bye.
for having Tiffanie on the show. Bye-bye.
See ya.